In this lesson, we're going to explain how to set up a wired or Ethernet connection in the home. So Ethernet provides a secure internet connection using wires, and this way you can avoid a lot of the EMFs that come off of our wireless networks. So although this method is more inconvenient for you and your family, it can be a hugely worthwhile consideration for those seeking to really cut down on the wireless signals around. So there's different options for setting up a wired connection in your home, and we're going to go over some of those now. So the first option, and the simplest, is you can connect your computer directly to the router using an Ethernet cable. So in the back of your router, you've got some plugs for an Ethernet cable. You plug one in there, and you run that cord to whatever device you're using, and you've got some wired internet to that device. Now, if your computer doesn't have an Ethernet port, you can buy an adapter. So for example, newer MacBooks have a USB-C connection, so you can simply purchase a USB-C to Ethernet adapter. If your device has a USB port, for example, then you just buy a USB to Ethernet adapter. So there's lots of options out there to get an Ethernet plug to lots of different devices. Even things like our phone can be connected with an Ethernet cable. So there's some different options for your smartphone when you're trying to connect that to an Ethernet cable. So you can connect your smartphone directly to the internet using an adapter, and there's different ones out there. So you can get a Lightning to Ethernet adapter, for example, for your iPhone. We've got some different ones in our recommended products. Now there's a few different ways to get the wires through your house. So running wires in your house by yourself is one example. You can tack it to the baseboards, or even getting a professional setup where you can come in and get the Ethernet cables run through your walls with different ports at different areas. That's a nice clean system that you can do as well. Another option is to use your home's existing coaxial or TV cable lines to transmit the internet signal. So there's devices called MoCA, M-O-C-A, that can be used to turn that cable internet existing system in your house to transmit an internet signal. Now, if your house doesn't have TV cable lines or coaxial, you can also just use your existing electrical wiring in your home and run an internet signal through that. So there's something called Powerline adapters, and you plug one into the plug near your router and connect it with an Ethernet cable. And then anywhere else in your home that you plug one of these Powerline adapters into an outlet and then connect an Ethernet wire to that adapter, you're going to get live internet to that device. So these can be a great option to easily get some wired internet around without needing to run wires necessarily. Now, a bit of a disclaimer on these, they do increase some dirty electricity within the home, so we recommend unplugging them when they're not being used. And if you're particularly sensitive, then running a wire directly from your router is where you're going to want to go. And if you start running out of Ethernet ports on the back of your router, or you want to split connections, then there's something called an Ethernet splitter that can be used that are really helpful. So you run one live internet wire to the splitter, and then there's a whole bunch of different ports that you can run more internet connections from. So this can be a great way to limit the number of long cables running through your home and just make things a little bit more clean. Now, a further way to help lower your EMF exposure is to use shielded Ethernet cables. So there's different types of Ethernet cables you can get. And if you get category 7, so Cat 7 or 8, these are actually shielded, and they're going to limit the electric fields that are running and coming off of these lines too. So that's a further level of protection that you can use. Now, grounding your Ethernet setup properly is also important. So ensuring that your router is grounded, so it has those 3 prongs. If there's only 2 prongs, then there are devices like an Ethernet grounding adapter kit that can help to ground that router. So here's a video explaining how to set that up. Now, it's very important that once you hook a wired connection up to a device, you now then have to turn the wireless off on that device. Otherwise, it's still going to be pumping out some wireless signals. So depending on what device you're using, it's going to be different. But we also want to then shut it off on our router. So once we've set up a wired connection using our router, we want to make sure that router is not still pumping out Wi-Fi. So we need to go in and turn the wireless off on our router. So there's some specific instructions on how to do this. So you can find links to some manuals in the download section. And don't replace Wi-Fi with a hotspotting connection from your phone to your computer, because this can lead to potentially higher EMF exposures as well compared to a traditional Wi-Fi or wired connections. So in conclusion, switching to Ethernet or a wired connection from Wi-Fi is one of the absolute biggest things you can do to reduce your EMF exposure. You also get the added benefit of a faster and more secure internet connection. So while it requires an initial setup of cables and adapters, the health benefits of switching to wired connections are massively worthwhile, a great investment for your house. In the next lesson, we'll show you the impact of implementing some of these changes. you.